Seriously?
Hey guys, and welcome to this Codex wishlist video with myself, 6+ Stevo. This is my third attempt at recording this. I have already recorded this video twice before, and both times the sound was just awful. So yes, I'm going to persevere. Third time's a charm. If this doesn't work, then you're never going to see this. If you're watching me talk about this now, then you know finally I've got everything set. Anywho, let's get on with the video, shall we? So, Ork Codex is on its way for 10th edition. Games Workshop revealed their roadmap for Codex releases, with the Ork Codex penciled in, well, not penciled in, it is in for a spring 2024 release. So it's not far away, it's just around the corner. In the meantime, we've all been using the Ork Index. I like the Ork Index. I think there's lots of cool things in here. There's some good stratagems, some good enhancements, and the detachment, the War Tribe Detachment special rule in there is nice, where you're getting them sustained hits in combat. Very nice indeed. However, it's a little bit sort of restrictive. It's a holdover until we get the Codex. We all know that. So we knew we wouldn't get, everything in the index. It just gives us something to get playing with until we get our proper Codex. And the thing I'm most excited about with that Codex is the new detachments that will be coming along included in that. Because, I mean, for myself at the moment, I've always been a Bad Moon player, so I like playing shooty orcs. And I keep forgetting the army rule in my games. The amount of times I've been in combat, rolled a load of dice and done it all, and completely forgotten about the sustained hits in combat is because I never take buffs like that. I've always gone, always used like Bad Moon detachments in previous editions. So with that being said, I thought it high time to create a wish list video, just talking over some ideas I've got for what I would like to see in these new detachments in the upcoming Ork Codex. And in a detachment, you gain your army specific rules that cover your whole army, and you also get your exclusive stratagems to that detachment, and you also get your exclusive enhancements for your characters. So it's going to be really interesting when the Codex comes out to sort of make the decisions to choose between these different detachments and what sort of aspect of the army they focus on. And I think it's going to be really cool to sort of have to make some sort of tough decisions there. Because you may like the detachment special rule that grants a bonus across your whole army, but then perhaps in another detachment you might think, but the stratagems there are really powerful. I really like those stratagems, they work for my playstyle. Or the enhancements for your characters. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. One interesting thing about it in particular is that they won't be clan focused anymore, which I think is a real positive. Because I think orc armies generally, usually, will be a war will be made up of orcs from various clans, various tribes that have either been taken over by force or joined willingly and just got swept up in the war. Following the lead of a mighty war boss. And that's like your traditional orc army. You do get clan specific armies, you do get sort of more focused armies and that's what I've always liked to do. But that was always more of a rarity up until like 8th edition, when it became very clan focused. So these new detachments that sort of put all that to one side, and no matter what clan you play or whether you play mixed clans, you can choose any of these detachments, and you can be able to pick and choose between games and try out different tactics and things, which I think is going to be really, really good. So I think the detachments will sort of take a more generalized sort of focus on an army. You'll get like the combat focused army, hence the war tribe detachment that we've already got, which is essentially Goths from previous editions. Or you go for a more shooty option or a more vehicular based option, or some other ones. But yeah, so this video I'm gonna go. Sorry, that was really disgusting, wasn't it? I do apologise for those of you that do not enjoy the slurping sounds. So yeah, this video I'm just going to be sharing the detachments that I would like to see in the Codex. I've come up with some ideas. So I've come up with some ideas for a detachment special rules, some enhancements and some stratagems. Now I haven't completely fleshed these out. I'm just literally spitballing ideas that I've had that I would like to see in the Codex. I haven't, listed all 6 stratagems, all 6 enhancements everyone get. Just a few, just some ideas. And so yeah, let's get started with the first detachment I would like to see in the Ork Codex being the Dakkaboy, for obvious reasons. So we've got fighty orcs, we're going to need shooty orcs as well. So yeah, Dakkaboy, all shooting attacks gained sustained hits 1. I think that would be cool. We've currently got the War Tribe one, which is focused on getting sustained hits in melee. I think a shooty one doing the same thing, but for shooting would be really, really good. Alternatively, we could they could go back to sort of like Bad Moons in 9th edition, grant extra range and then critical hits, giving you like extra AP. That was really, really nice in 9th edition. That really brought up some units like Shooter Boys and things like that, which generally, from my experience in game, don't achieve much at all. Shooters, yeah, they're pretty weak, and Shooter Boys in comparison to Slugger Chopper Boys, there's just not really a good reason to choose them. I do, but I also accept that they're just not as good. They're just not. Choppers getting that -1 and everything in combat is just so much better. Every time I unload with the Shooter Boy squad, they usually achieve absolutely dick. So yeah, I think something that's going to buff them and make them more of a viable choice, and I think detachments are going to be the way to do that, most likely. Then we go into some stratagems for the Dakkaboy, and I've sort of harked back to some sort of older. You'll recognise some names and things that I've used, from previous editions. We've got show-offs, or gun crazy show-offs, which would be a stratagem that you could use just on a particular unit to immediately shoot again. I think this would be very fitting. I think you'd need some sort of limit on it. I think it would be, certainly once per turn at the absolute maximum. But yeah, being able to pick a unit and just immediately shoot with it again, I think would be very orky as they get swept up in the frenzy of fire and they're absolutely loving it. I think that would be very cool and very fitting for Bad Moons or freebooters. Yeah, I think that would be cool. Stick bombs. Stratagem stick bombs, because stick bombs are just kind of forgotten about now. They don't really get mentioned anywhere anymore. They still exist, they're still on the models and stuff. But yeah, they're not really like a war gear option within themselves now. Obviously, certain units have the grenade keyword, and the grenade stratagem is really cool. But I thought a particular stick bomb stratagem, which would be like a variation on the grenade stratagem, perhaps a slightly better or slightly different, a bit more unique to the orcs, so they have their own grenade stratagem. I think that would be very cool and very fitting for a Dakkaboy. I've then put the stratagem in here, Deafening Dakka, which would be some kind of stratagem that would affect morale of the enemies. Imagine it, you're under fire from orcs who are just unleashing volleys and volleys of Dakka at you, high caliber, loud weaponry ricocheting all around you. It's going to be unnerving. Yet they're not going to be hitting much, but it's going to be unnerving. So I think some sort of stratagem that could force battle shock tests from your shooting attacks and things, I think would be very, very cool indeed. You know, exactly how that would work, I don't know, but maybe you could force like a pinning test, so they have to like hunker down, or something, or just force like a battle shock test. I think would be very, very cool, very fluffy, and would sort of put in a sort of a strategic element to your insane Dakka mobs. That's all I've got for stratagems for that. Obviously, there's loads more you could do with that. Just a few ideas there. Enhancements wise, so enhancements is where it gets really interesting. This is really, you can really customize your characters, your warlords, and your characters and your army. So this is the bit where it offers a lot of customization. And straight away, first one, bring back the dead shiny shooter, because it's kind of an iconic. What was it before? Shiny Gubbins, whereas now it would be an enhancement. But yeah, the dead shiny shooter, bring it back. Whether or not it would just work a bit like Headwhopper's Kill Chopper and sort of grant extra special rules on top of the already existing weapon, like giving it sustained hits, or giving it what's the other one, the devastating wounds, or something like that. Or perhaps it just has its own profile and replaces the weapon profile that you've already got. One thing's for sure, the dead shiny shooter would have to have a lot of shots and have a nice bit of AP, you know, a decent custom nasty shooter for the orcs. I think would be very, very good. Another enhancement for a Dakka mob, targeting squig. Again, still in the game, still there, still visible on the miniatures, but not really a piece of war gear in game terms. I think in the flash kits you've got one of the dudes with one on his shoulder, and it's actually that gives them the +1 ballistic skill, but it's just kind of folded into their stats now, and the targeting squigs aren't really mentioned, and I think that's a bit of a shame. So I think just having the targeting squig to be able to increase the ballistic skill of your character. So stick that on a big mech or a war boss or something, and give them a +1 ballistic skill. I think would be really, really cool, especially if you've given them a nice nasty gun. It would make sense for shooty orcs certainly, or being able to equip that, you know, on perhaps even your big mech with shock attack gun would be very, very nice indeed. And it would open up the doors of being able to customize something and attach that piece to your miniature. I think it would be very cool. Another classic weapon, the Gobshot Blunderbuss. This was a Bad Moon exclusive weapon in previous editions, and it needs to come back. It was an auto-hitting sort of torrent weapon. It was a big blunderbuss that would fire out sort of orc teeth as shrapnel, just a sort of a real way to show your wealth, that you're just firing out money essentially. And I think it was a really cool weapon, and they should bring it back. Anything that auto hits for orcs is really cool. Definitely bring back the Gobshot Blunderbuss. And then another weapon that I think they should bring back, enhancement wise, is the Super Shock Attack Gun. I think this was in Saga of the Beast, I believe, and you could upgrade your shock attack gun to a super one, which I think doubled the amount of shots it had. I can't remember if it did anything else, but it just basically made the weapon better, and I think something like that would be good. If you're playing a shooty orc detachment, the chances are that you probably already are using a shock attack gun, so the chance to be able to have a customized, even better one is just a no-brainer in my book. So there we go, there's a Dakka mob anyway. Next up, now one really, really close to my heart that I would love to see. Please, Games Workshop, put this in the codex. It needs to happen, and that is, of course, a Dread Mob detachment. Yes, we need a Dread Mob detachment. So currently, Dread Mobs are kind of, we've gained a lot and we've lost a lot. We can have quite a lot more in our dread mobs now than we've ever been able to have before, because we used to be limited by heavy support selections. That's not a thing anymore. We can have whatever we want as long as we don't have just 3 of any particular unit. So we can have 3 units of cans, 3 units of Morkanauts, 3 units of Gorkanauts, 3 units of Death Dreads, Mega Dreads, etc. So you can really fill out your dread mob very nicely. I think it's up to 18 killer cans, which yeah, that would be cool. But we used to be able to have up to 9 Death Dreads, and we can't do that at the moment, and that kind of sucks because Death Dreads used to be taken in units of 1 to 3. Now, hopefully, they do that to the Death Dread data card again, in which case a lot of what I'm going to talk about here will be irrelevant. But if they don't do that, then I think this detachment that I've sort of come up with could help that. So the first thing I've got written down for the Dread mob is that Death Dreads become battle line. So that's one easy way to sort of address this. So if you make Death Dreads battle line in a Dread mob, then that means you can have up to 6 of them, which would, it's not 9, but it's more than 3, so it would be good. And then I've also put the rule, walkers, so anything with the walker keyword will gain improved invulnerable save, or gain a feel no pain of 6+, or could reduce incoming damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. Basically, some kind of thing. I think if you're doing a dread mob, you're going to be wanting to have quite a hardy, tanky army. And so I think anything that can assist on that front and help just make them that little bit more resilient, give them that edge over Death Dreads from non-dread mob armies, and killer cans and Morkanauts, etc. So I think something like that would be very, very cool. Think about it. If a big mech or a war boss is leading a dread war, then they're going to be the best at making Death Dreads and cans. That's what they do. It's a passion and it's an obsession with them. You know, they get so consumed into doing this that they're going to become very good at doing it. And so I think their Death Dreads and cans are going to be better than that of rival tribes and wars. So I think that makes sense. And I think in game terms, it would be like you've got your fighty army, your shooty army. This would be a more tanky, sort of resilient army, and would give them a little bit more staying power. So I think that would be a really cool thing. For stratagems for the dread mob, I've got written down here because I've been writing notes in a little book. See, that's why I keep looking down. Can wall. This goes back to really old editions where it used to be a tactic that all players used, and it was called the can wall. And you'd line up your killer cans, and you'd have all your boys and your squishy stuff behind them, and the cans would offer protection up until the point where they were ready to move out and charge. I think it would be cool to sort of hark back to that and sort of make that a bit more of an official tactic in the form of a stratagem. So I've written for that, units partially behind cans or dreads or walkers, I guess, either would gain stealth or would count as being in cover or would gain some kind of invulnerable save or something. I think it'd be very cool, would represent the orcs sort of gathering up behind the Death Dreads and the cans to, you know, get cover from incoming fire on the way in. Very sort of First World War sort of tactics in the way that tanks used to be used. A lot of infantry would bunch up behind the tank and use the tank as cover until it was time to charge and get out there. So yeah, I think that'd be quite a cool stratagem. Next one I've got is Dread Smash. Death Dreads gain an extra attack on the charge or throw out some mortal wounds, or all their attacks become devastating wounds. Basically, some kind of way that when the dreads, you can use a stratagem, a bit like tank shock, just some way to buff them up on the charge when they come barreling in, just cause carnage. So I think that'd be cool. Something that works a little bit differently from ramming speed, but gives them that slight buff. Again, just improving the Death Dreads in this mob over that of other mobs. I've then got one called the Mech Special. Mech repairs are buffed. Repair 3 wounds instead of D3. So yeah, I think, again, talking about lore-wise, the mechs in this detachment are going to be all about their definitions. Going to be very proud of their creations. I think they're going to be quite protective of them and possibly the best at fixing them. So I think being able to use a stratagem, and rather than roll the dice, you can just go instantly repairs it 3 damage rather than D3. I think it'd be a nice little, spend a CP just to give the maximum repair rate on your vehicle rather than risk rolling that dice and rolling a 1. I think could be quite a nice little stratagem for helping just keep them dreads alive. What else? I've written quite a lot for the dread mob because I'm quite biased. I've got one here called Can Crush, which I just like the name of. I've had a bit of fun naming some of these. So Killer Cans gains sustained hits in combat would be quite nice. I think the Grots would be so infused with excitement and joy at being able to finally kick some ass now they're in their new can suits, and I think something like that would sort of have a can frenzy going on would be quite cool. And the last of the stratagems that I've got in here, teleport pad. Bring back the teleport pad. We want deep striking stuff, and I've written for this one, walkers can deep strike if held in reserve with this teleport pad stratagem, or possibly any unit in the army, but I think particularly on walkers would be quite cool. It'd be quite fluffy, thinking back to like the lore of like Nazdreg and stuff, and the dread mobs and things. I think would be very cool, and I think it's the right way for a teleport pad to work, I think. Enhancement wise, we've got one here called Fixing Tools. So big mechs can repair vehicles D3, because currently big mechs don't repair vehicles, which is quite odd. The mech boys have become a bit of an auto include for vehicular based armies, but it's a bit strange that big mechs don't do that anymore. They act a bit more like they improve the shooting of units, and they act a little bit like a pain boy now, which is kind of odd. And I think if they don't change that in the next codex coming forward, then being able to give your big mech an enhancement that allows him now to be able to fix vehicles as well as all his other stuff, I think would be quite a nice little way around that, and show the fact that he's proud of his creations and wants to keep it working. The next enhancement I've put on here is overcharged KFF. So the custom force field currently is very, very cool. No slurping that time, so it's cooled down a bit now. So currently the KFF gives you a 5-up invuln save, and once per game you can overcharge it to gain a 4+. Very cool. So I've gone with the overcharged KFF, or super overcharged KFF. So the rule I've put for this enhancement is that you can overcharge every single turn, but you have to roll a d6 to see if it overheats. And if it does overheat, it will blow up, it will most likely kill the bearer and hit some units around him, basically, and throw out sort of D3 mortal wounds or something. And I think that'd be very cool. It's very fluffy, very orky. The fact that this thing's overcharged every turn, it's just going to be, getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and then it's eventually going to blow. But in the meantime, until it does that, or if you get really lucky and it doesn't do that, then you gain the 4-up invuln save all the way, which is going to be really, really nice, but comes with that big risk. And I think things like that on orcs is great when you've got things that can be really, really powerful, but really, really risky. It's that risk-reward thing, which I think is so satisfying in an orc army, and it adds to the sort of randomness, chaotic nature of orcs. The next one I put here is the Scrap Crown. Basically a crown made of scrap metal. The bearer gains Warboss abilities, or the Warboss keyword. Essentially, they did a bit of this in, again, Saga of the Beast, where you could basically, you can give this to a big mech, and then he will still have all his big mech abilities, but he'll also gain some of the Warboss abilities as well. And this is to really represent that if you've got a big mech leading your Dread War, then he's essentially like Warboss scale. He's a Warboss that can fix things, essentially. And to sort of put him, you're probably going to have a few big mechs in your army. And to have your warlord, with this enhancement, sort of stand out above the rest, that he's the boss of the mechs, he's the big boss, I think would be quite nice and cool. So yeah, there you go. What we've done so far: Dakka Mob, Dread Mob. We've already got the War detachment, which I think will stick. I think it might be called something else. Maybe I don't know what it would be called, but essentially I think we'll still have that one in the codex, changed up somewhat. So that gives us 3 detachments. We need 3 more, don't we? So where do we go next? Well, of course, we've got to have a speed war, haven't we? Perfect for those Evil Sons players, them Speed Freak players, or anyone else that just likes to go fast. And this is where it's going to be really nice in the fact of non-clan specific, because you can have a Bad Moon speed war. Bad Moons, they've just got loads of money. They're not necessarily all about shooting. They just like to show off their wealth and that. And what better way to show off your wealth with a nice new ride that's fast and loud as hell. Or Goths. Goths might like to use a speed war detachment because they're all about the fighting, and getting in there fast is what they want to do. So they're all going to load up in trucks and bikes and whatever gets them into the action faster. So I really like the idea that they've moved away from making these clan specific now and giving us more freedom. It's a really good thing. So yeah, speed war. Difficult one to do really, because with a speed war, obviously you give buffs and things to movement and speed and stuff, but if you're doing this detachment, you're likely bringing a lot of buggies, a lot of trucks, a lot of bikes. You're already very, very fast, so more speed can sometimes be sort of surplus to requirements. You don't really gain much from it in game terms, but I don't really see much other ways you can do things with this. So I've gone with the tried and tested, extra movement to Speed Freak units, or perhaps they just always advance on a 6 across the whole army. Rather than rolling the dice, you just get that consistent, more reliable speed. So maybe they're not necessarily faster, they're just more reliable, which would result in them being faster. Something like that. But I've had a bit more fun in the stratagem side of things. So, exhaust clouds, or billowing exhausts, a stratagem here, which I think used to be baked into a lot more units, like bikers and things, but having it as a stratagem would be really cool to be able to use on biker or vehicle units. And just simply, the exhaust will gain them the stealth keyword, so they'll be at like -1 to hit, making them more survivable on the way in. Nice and simple, but fluffy and tactical. Next one I've got drive-by Dakka. So we want to do some drive-bys, some good old ghetto-style drive-bys. So Speed Freak units re-roll misses in the shooting phase. Just something to buff up their shooting on a turn. I think would be very, very cool. Something that's not just focused in on speed, but actually like firing off their Dakka. I think would be very, very cool. Just something to give it a little bit of a buff on that turn they do a drive-by and unleash the fire. And for some of the buggies and that, with some of the weaponry they've got, it'd be very, very nice to be able to re-roll misses. Then got a stratagem called Turbocharge. Speed Freak / biker units gain devastating wounds on the charge. So yeah, when they charge in, sort of work like a cavalry charge, I think something like that buffs them on the charge, because you get a buggy hurtling into your unit, shit's gonna kick off. It's gonna cause some damage, or a load of bikes just like hurtling into you, swinging and stuff. That I think on the charge they should gain some kind of buff through this stratagem, be able to do like a turbo charge. And then I've got another stratagem, Truck Boys. So Truck Boys have sort of come and gone and come and gone. I think in the form of a stratagem would be really, really good. And this stratagem works that boys can charge even after the truck has moved. So yeah, currently if the trucks move, they can get out and they can shoot, but they can't charge or something like that. I think a simple stratagem that allows them to do that. And I think in a speed war attachment, it would make Truck Boys particularly dangerous. Truck can barrel up there, they can pile out and just charge straight in. It's very fluffy, very powerful, and I think would be a very popular stratagem in this detachment. Enhancement wise, squig hide tires for your war boss on bike or Deathkiller war trike. giving them the fallback and charge, just making them a bit more manoeuvrable and stuff. The big red button auto triggers deadly demise. So rather than roll for it, you just pop the stratagem down, the vehicle automatically explodes, you hit the self-destruct button, boom. Be brilliant. That would be really fluffy, really funny. And for an Ork player, it's quite disappointing when your vehicles don't explode. They should explode. So, a stratagem that's going to encourage that would be very cool. I've got big bore exhausts here that gives a permanent -1 to hit to the bearer and any unit he's joined for like a war boss on bike. The boss's tools, much like the one I did in the last detachment. War boss can repair vehicles D3. So basically, it's the same sort of way, making a war boss able to fix stuff. He's a speed boss. He's going to be out tinkering on his bike and fixing it up all the time and everything. So he's going to become quite adept at doing it. So I think having the war boss able to nip about on his bike and do repairs on things, it could be quite cool. The lightning claw. Basically upgrades the power claw that a war boss has to always hit first in combat. So they always strike first, no matter whose turn it is, whatever, they always strike first. Because it's speed freaks and they're fast, and I think it's another way to incorporate a bit of speed in there to give him the lightning claw. Then we got the big horn. And this is something that can be fitted to your war bike or your Death Killer war trike, and it's just a big ass horn, probably not like that, a bit more like imagine something like the Horn of Gondor or something, and basically will cause battle shock tests to any units within a certain range of it. I think it'd be quite cool, a big intimidating loud horn that the bearer giants, and it just terrifies the opposition, disorientates them and stuff. I think it'd be quite a cool one, something to sort of force leadership tests or pinning tests of some sort. So there you go, Speed War. What other kind of detachments do I have up my sleeve? I would like to see in the Ork Codex coming out a Cunning mob. So this is your sneaky mob. This is perfect for blood axes and death skulls as well to a degree, or any kind of other sneaky, more tactical Ork war boss. This is going to be the detachment for you. So with this one, I've gone less from sort of just straight upgrades of like, oh, you fight better, you're stronger, you're tougher. This is more on a tactical level. So I've gone more about like deployment and movement and stuff. So, Cunning mob, army-wide special rule, can redeploy D3 units before the first turn of the game. So yeah, before the game starts, you can just, where you've set some things up, you can redeploy them to throw your opponent off. Usually you set up one unit at a time each, so they're setting up in response to what you've set up. So it's quite a powerful ability to have actually. You can really sort of ruin their plan for like that early part of the game and redeploy. And I think that can be quite a useful ability when in the right hands. I've also put units in strategic reserve can come on a turn early. So rather than wait until turn 2 to be able to bring on your strategic reserves, they can come on from turn 1. And then rather than wait until turn 3 to be able to bring them on in the enemy deployment zone, you could do that from turn 2. So it just makes this whole army, they haven't got any big buffs, they're very vanilla otherwise, but they've got those strategic elements that they can redeploy, and they can bring reserves in sooner and behind enemy lines sooner. And that's very powerful. When used correctly, when used right, that can really screw up the plans of the enemy, and I think that would be very powerful. It could perhaps sound too powerful, but because they haven't got any of those other buffs that the other detachments would have, I think it's actually going to be quite fair. Stratagems. Hidden in plain sight. So this is to use on a unit of boys. Essentially, they can deep strike to represent the fact that they've been hiding in a building or in some terrain, or they've crawled up from a sewer network or hidden underground or something. or hiding in bushes or barrels or whatever. Basically, a unit of boys held in strategic reserve can deep strike. I think very cool, very fluffy, and would be good. Minefield. So this is a stratagem that you can use when you're holding an objective. Rather than shooting, a unit of boys or commandos or whatever can lay some mines on the objective. Once those mines are laid, any other unit that comes and lands and moves within range of that objective immediately suffers D6 mortal wounds, and then the minefield will be cleared. Because I think they've tried to incorporate mines and things in the game before, and essentially they never really do much, because if you do lay mines and things, your opponent just avoids them and doesn't touch them. But if you're laying them directly on an objective, the boys are playing the objective right, and they're sneaky gits, so they're going to lay mines to protect it and stop it falling in the enemy hands. It forces the enemy, you have to go on it, because if you want to win the game, you need those primary objectives. So you're going to be forced to go on there and then suffer the consequences of some mortal wounds. I think it's really fluffy, really tactical, and really cunning. Smoke grenades. I think anything with the grenade keyword should be able to use this stratagem as well, and gain stealth. Basically gain a -1 to hit or something like that, or throw the smoke grenade at an enemy unit and then put them on a -1 ballistic skill. Really tactical, really sneaky, and I think something like that would work really, really well. I've then got sabotage. So use this stratagem on the enemy's movement phase on a vehicle when it goes to move, and roll a dice, and on a certain result, I don't know, a 4+, whatever, the vehicle can't move because it's been sabotaged before the game starts. The grots have been in there, snuck into the enemy base or whatever, tinkered with it, you know, loosened some bolts or whatever, and the vehicle is temporarily immobilized. I think it's a bit of a gotcha moment, which I know a lot of people don't like, but I think it represents that sort of infiltrating sort of thing of sabotage and stuff, and I think it'd be quite cool. And that's no enhancements. I've got enhancements. We bring back the thinking cap for your war boss. The thinking cap. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but it used to gain like CP or something, or it used to allow him to have like multiple warlord traits or something. But I think something like the thinking cap would be good if when you use a stratagem, you roll a dice, and on a 4+, you immediately get refunded the CP for using it. I think it would be quite cool, because I think this detachment's going to revolve. A lot of the things are going to be about deployment, movement, and stratagems and command points. It's all going to be about that, utilising those tactical things to give you the edge in battle. So I think a war boss there, it would be a way of demonstrating how he's a thinking boss. You know, he's a smart boss, and he's got tricks and tactics up his sleeve, more than your average boss. So this would be a great way to demonstrate that. The next enhancement I've got is Vox unit. Could probably come up with a better name than that. But essentially, your war boss, or whichever character you've given it to, has got a Vox in which he can call in airstrikes or bombardments from an artillery back off the battlefield. And any unit that's visible to him, he can draw a line of sight to, he can call in an airstrike on it. But it's orcs. So they're not going to be incredibly reliable. So I think what you do is roll a dice, and I don't know, on a 2+, it would hit that unit and throw out some mortal wounds. But if you rolled a 1, it hits him instead, because the orc bomber above, or the cruiser up in orbit firing down, or the artillery is back, whoever's at the end on this big gun, getting the order, they just go, all right, yeah, there's the coordinates, hit fire, and they're like, no, you fool, that's the boss, like you're shooting on his coordinates. So I think that would be quite funny. That it would be risky to your character, but would also give him the ability, wherever he is and whatever he can see, he can call in an airstrike on stuff. Would be very cool. So there you go. There's the Cunning mob. Next up, the Mad mob. So this is going to focus in on another aspect of the Orks, and that is War energy and psychic powers. And Mad Boys. Mad Boys, they don't get much mention in the lore anymore, but this is a whole sort of army of gibbering, just off their tits, high on Ork energy and shrooms. This is the crazy. If you like your psychic powers and stuff, this will be the detachment for you. Army-wide special rule: roll a d6 at the start of each turn to see what effects your army have. And I've written down here, like on 1, nothing happens. On 2, they get they're at a -1 to hit. On a 3, they get feel no pain. On a 4, they get extra movement and they can advance. 5, you get like extra attacks. Or if you roll a 6, the player can choose. Essentially, it doesn't have to be them. I just threw some random buffs down. But basically, roll a d6 every turn. You get a random buff. You don't know what it's going to be. It can be something really, really good, or it could be something that's no use to you. But it's just going to be. I don't think this is going to be a detachment that's would see play much on competitive tabletops, but it would be one for players that just want to have fun and really embrace the random chaoticness, the randomness of the Orks. They just want to embrace that. I think it could be really powerful when you're lucky, and it'd just be great fun. Strategy-wise, stratagems. Enemy. So I haven't actually written the names for these ones. I must have. I've written down the description, but I didn't name them. But yeah. So I've got one stratagem that puts the enemy psychers at a -1. So you could use this sort of just as. Basically, the War energy is so overwhelming in this that enemy psychers are bound to be affected by this. It's bound to cloud their judgment, or the interfere with their own psychic sort of focus and energy. So I think being able to use a stratagem and pick out like an enemy psyker that's perhaps within range of like a weird boy or whatever, that they'll be at like, all their psychic powers, and deny the witches will be at like a -1 modifier. Would be quite nice. Next stratagem: turn an enemy character into a squig. Please, GW, bring that back in some form, some way, some form, because that would be cool. And maybe you roll a dice for it, and if it's a bad roll, your weird boy attempting to cast it, he turns into a squig instead or something. Again, just go full randomness with this one. Also gone on here, a stratagem that could bring about a second war. So you could war, the whole army could war for a second time. Would have to be very expensive on CP, that one. But I think would just show that they are so... that the war energy is so overbearing that they war twice, it gives that, maybe that one's a little bit too powerful. Again, I'm just throwing shit at the wall and sees what sticks here. Another stratagem for auto deny the witch. So the weird boys in this, the were boys and the weird boys in this, I think will be really infused with psychic power and stuff, and be able to the war energy be able to deflect incoming enemy psychic attacks. So I think as well as being powerful psychers, I think they'll be a good counter to an enemy psyker army, and just be able to maybe use a stratagem once per turn or once per game, whatever, to just automatically deny a psychic power. And then for enhancements, bring back Scorched Git Bones. Maybe they could re-roll psychic tests, or be at a +1 modifier for psychic tests. That's an obvious one. Then I've got the Weird Banner. So basically, you can give this to your War Banner knob, but the banner itself is infused with War energy and stuff, and he gains the Weird Boy psychic powers through the Weird Banner. The Weird Banner will give him the Ed Banger ability and the War energy ability, and be able to do that. So he'd essentially become like a Weird Boy and a War Banner knob in one. Again, mixing some of them character traits, I think would be very, very cool. And I think it'd be like a big totem that would be the focus of all this War energy and stuff. So yeah, and maybe he'd gain like Deadly Demise as well, like the Weird Boys have. I think it'd be very, very cool indeed. Next one I've got Mad Shrooms. So you use this stratagem on a unit, no, it's not stratagem, sorry, enhancement. You'd give this to a weird boy. And any unit he joins, they re-roll all hits in melee, or gain some kind of buff in melee. Him and the whole unit, he's sharing out these mushrooms with everyone. They're all eating them. They're getting hyped up. They're just getting frenzied. They're getting they're just in the zone, and they just get frenzied and go nuts because they're all high on these shrooms. So yeah, and then I've written another one, another enhancement here called Blessing of Mork. And for the description of that, I wrote nothing. So someone must have interrupted me when I was writing that, or I lost my train of thought. So God knows, don't know what the Blessing of Mork is, or what I was thinking when I wrote that. Obviously, I had something in mind. I don't know. Blessing of Mork, I imagine, would be something that would help keep him alive. Just a simple sort of buff to a character to help make him more resilient, I guess. Probably some kind of feel no pain or something. But yeah, there you go. And that's it. Have I done them all? Oh, yeah. So you've done the Mad Mob, Speed Mob, Dread Mob, Dakka Mob, and then, of course, you've got your Brutal War Mob that's already in there. So there you go. You've got your Fighty Orcs, you've got your Shooty Orcs, you've got your Dread Mob Orcs, you've got your Speedy ones, your Sneaky ones, and your Mad Crazy Psychic ones. 6 detachments there for you guys. But I have some honourable mentions, so other possibilities, because these are just detachments. They're detachments I would like to see. Whether or not we do see them, I don't know, because GW might hit us with something completely different and left field. But I've written some other honourable mentions that would also be really cool to see in the upcoming Ork Codex. First of which, Rebel Grots. Come on, GW, give us a good Rebel Grot detachment. So give us buffs to all anything with the Gretchen keyword, give them some kind of invulnerable save or something, and make Gretchen units battle line. So you can have up to 6 units of Gretchen in your army, because 3, if you're going to a full-on Grot mob, 3 is going to be a bit disappointing, isn't it? You're going to want more than 60 Grots in your army. You're going to want to flood the table with a sea of Grots. But yes, please GW, take a look at Rebel Grots. Next up, one that I definitely think we will see in the Codex. It's not so much a wish list, this one, just one that I think we will see, and that's a Beast Snagger detachment. Something that will focus around Beast Snaggers. I had to think about what that could be and what sort of buffs you'd get. But it's tough because Beast Snaggers, they have a lot of buffs already built in, like their Feel No Pain and anti-vehicle monster keywords and stuff. So it's hard to think of enhancements or just detachment special rules that buffs them further in that aspect, because they're already buffed. So I don't know what they'll do, but I'm fairly sure, because there's been a big push on Beast Snaggers lately, especially with the last army box that we've had come out for Christmas, and the fact that they're all still quite new. I think there will be a push on Beast Snaggers, and there will be a Beast Snagger specific detachment. You mark my words. The next one, a Feral Mob. I don't think we'll see this, but something to represent Feral Orcs, or would be perfect for, snake bites could lean into this, or any tribe or clan could lean into this to represent Feral Orcs. I think they'd be good at melee, and they would have you'd want them to be tough and resilient, covered in war paint and stuff, and their own belief in their might just gives them that extra toughness. And I think Feral Orcs are essentially a bit more resilient and tough. But how you'd represent that in the detachment, I don't know, because they would end up just becoming quite similar to Beast Snagger Orcs, I think. So I don't think we'd see that, but it would be cool to see. It would be cool to see. And the last honourable mention that I think would be very cool in the Codex if they did it is Gazzy's Bully Boys. Now in this, Gazgol would have to be compulsory, and essentially what this would do is make Knobs and Mega Knobs battle line. I've heard lots of people ask for before, when they wish list and stuff, they always ask for like Knobs to be like previously like a troops choice. Now it'd be battle line. Personally, I disagree with that. I don't think that's right. I think the core of any Orc army should be the boys, unless you're going for something very specific and themed. And I think if Knobs were just battle line across the board, you'd just see that all the time, and you wouldn't see boys on the table anymore, and it wouldn't. I personally think that'd be a wrong direction to go in. But for Ghazghkull and his elite bodyguard, his elite army, this would really be a way to represent the elite of the elite, the core of Ghazi's force. And so he'd have the best of the best surrounding him, and I think that'd be quite a cool themed, power list of just Ghazi and loads of mega knobs and knobs and just like really hench army. I think that'd be very, very cool themed list. I don't think we'd see that in the Codex. We may see that something along that line in a future expansion or a campaign book or something possibly. But yeah, anyway, there you go, guys. That was my wish list video. Looking at the timer, a bit shorter than the last one I did. Luckily, I think I remembered most of the things I said the last 2 times I've recorded this. Very frustrating because I don't script my videos. I just scribble down some notes and things and just spitball some ideas with you. But I wanted to share them ideas with you, and I wanted to start building up this sort of excitement for the Codex. What are you looking forward to with the Codex coming out? And what do you think of my detachments and the stratagems and the enhancements that I've come up with and my ideas for these? Do you think they're good? Do you think they're crap? Let me know in the comments section below, and let me know what sort of detachments you would like to see in the Codex. Anything you'd like to see in the Codex. Detachments, the stratagems and the enhancements. Let me know in the comments section below. Let me know which ones you'd like to see. Yeah, join, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, check that little join button. Have a look at that. Have a look at that. But yeah, thank you very much, guys, for watching this. I will see you on the next video. This is 6+ Stevo, signing out.